The empty throne. The Galactic Senate was the most powerful institution in the universe. It ruled over thousands of star systems, dictated the fate of entire civilizations, and passed laws that shaped the galaxy. Every species, from the ancient Thalaxar to the warlike Vorthons, had a seat in the Grand Chamber. But there was one seat that had never been filled. The chair at the center of the chamber, Earth's seat, stood empty, as it had for centuries. Kyrex, a young diplomat from the Vorthon Confederacy, sat at his assigned place, his 4 fingers tapping restlessly on the polished metal table. This was his first time attending the Senate, and though he had studied galactic politics for years, one mystery had always puzzled him. "Why is Earth's seat empty?" he finally asked, his voice carrying through the chamber. Silence fell over the Senate. For a moment, no one spoke. The question was simple, yet it sent a wave of unease through the gathered leaders. Kyrex noticed how some senators shifted uncomfortably, others glanced at one another, and a few even lowered their gaze as if afraid to speak. Chancellor Ovaltar, a reptilian giant from the Selvar Dominion, cleared his throat. His deep voice echoed across the chamber. "Earth has chosen not to participate," he said carefully. "They refuse to attend. They refuse to vote. They refuse to rule." Kyrex frowned. But why? Another silence. Then, an elder of the Thalaxar, his skin pale and wrinkled, let out a slow breath. "Because they do not need to," the elder murmured. His blind, white eyes stared into nothingness. "And that is what terrifies us." A chill ran down Kyrex's spine. He looked around the chamber, expecting someone to argue, to dismiss the elder's words as nonsense. But no one did. The silence stretched on, heavier than before. "They are just another species," Kyrex insisted, trying to mask his unease. "The same as us." "No," the elder shook his head. "Not the same." Chancellor Ovaltar turned to glare at the Thalaxar elder. "Enough of this," he growled. "Earth is irrelevant. We do not speak of them because there is nothing to speak of." But Kyrex wasn't satisfied. He could see it now, the fear in their eyes, the tension in their voices. They were afraid of Earth, but why? His mentor, Senator Varn, who sat beside him, leaned in. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Drop this, Kyrex. Some questions are better left unanswered." Kyrex hesitated, but before he could ask more, a sudden beeping sound filled the chamber. The main display flickered to life. "Emergency transmission," an officer announced. "Outer Rim Sector. Unidentified distress signal." The senators turned to watch as the screen displayed a grainy video feed. The image shook violently, the sound filled with static. A figure, blurry, barely visible, appeared on the screen. A voice crackled through the noise. "We found it. We found the truth. The Senate must know." The transmission cut off. The chamber was silent. The officer, his face pale, turned back to the Senate. The transmission, it came from an abandoned human research station. A shiver ran down Kyrex's spine. The humans had left that station centuries ago. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. Kyrex couldn't sleep that night. The transmission from the abandoned human station played over and over in his mind, the fear in the speaker's voice, the way the signal cut out so suddenly, and worst of all, the eerie silence that followed in the Senate chamber. They were hiding something. But what? Kyrex needed answers, and he knew exactly where to find them. Deep within the Senate complex, hidden from public access, was the restricted archives, a vault of classified records that contained everything the Senate did not want the galaxy to know. Kyrex walked through the dark halls, his footsteps barely making a sound. His heart pounded as he reached a large security door. The entry denied message flashed on the screen. He took a deep breath and pulled out a small hacking device. Vorthons weren't just warriors. They were engineers, innovators, problem solvers. Within seconds, the lock clicked open. Kyrex slipped inside. Rows of glowing data terminals stretched before him, filled with centuries of hidden knowledge. He quickly searched for Earth. The system hesitated, as if reluctant to give him what he wanted. Then dozens of restricted files appeared before his eyes. His breath caught. There were thousands of records on Earth. Most had been marked as sealed by High Command. Others were simply deleted, erased as if they had never existed. But one file stood out. It was old, nearly 1,000 years old. The title sent a shiver down his spine. Final Senate Report on Earth's Withdrawal. Kyrex opened it. The screen flickered, and a video log began to play. A human figure appeared, tall, dressed in ancient military uniform. His expression was unreadable, his voice calm but heavy with finality. "This is Admiral Daniel Graves of the Terran Defense Fleet," the man said. "Earth will no longer participate in the Senate. We are withdrawing from all intergalactic affairs, effective immediately." Kyrex leaned closer. This was the moment humanity left the galaxy. But why? "We have seen what lies beyond," the Admiral continued. "We have learned the truth about this universe, about the enemies that watch from the dark." Kyrex's fingers clenched the console. "Enemies. The Senate is blind," the Admiral said. "You think you are in control. You think your fleets and your laws keep you safe." He paused, his gaze turning cold. "You are wrong." Kyrex's heartbeat quickened. "We are leaving," the Admiral continued. "Not out of fear, but because we must prepare. When the day comes, when the void stirs once more, we will be ready." The screen glitched. The last word sent a chill through Kyrex's bones. "Pray that we never return." Then the file deleted itself. Kyrex staggered back. His mind raced. What had the humans seen? What were they preparing for? And why was the Senate so afraid of their return? Suddenly, the door behind him slid open. "Step away from the console." Kyrex turned slowly. Chancellor Ovaltar stood in the doorway, flanked by armed guards. His reptilian eyes gleamed with fury. "You shouldn't have seen that," the Chancellor growled. Kyrex swallowed hard. He had just uncovered the Senate's greatest secret. And now, they couldn't let him leave alive. Kyrex's mind raced as the guards closed in. His heart pounded in his chest. Think. "You don't understand," he said, raising his hands. "Earth knew something dangerous." Chancellor Ovaltar's expression remained cold. "And that is exactly why you should have stayed ignorant." The guards moved to seize him. Kyrex acted on instinct. He grabbed the nearest data console and smashed his hacking device into the port. The lights flickered. Alarms blared. The entire system began to shut down. The guards hesitated, just long enough. Kyrex ran. Through the darkened halls, past startled officers, dodging security drones. He knew they wouldn't let him escape the Senate complex. There was only one way out, off-world. His ship was waiting in the docking bay. If he could reach it. Blaster fire erupted behind him. He dodged left, sprinting faster. The docking doors came into view, but just before he could reach them, a stun blast struck him in the back. His vision blurred, his body collapsed. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was the Chancellor's cold smile. Kyrex woke up to the hum of an engine. His body ached. His hands were bound. He was on a ship. A familiar voice spoke. "You're lucky I convinced the Chancellor not to kill you." Kyrex turned his head. Senator Varn stood nearby, his expression grim. Kyrex groaned. "Where are we?" Varn glanced at the control panel. "We're taking you far from the Senate, somewhere you can't cause trouble." Kyrex clenched his jaw. "Varn, listen to me. The Senate is hiding something huge. The humans didn't just leave. They were preparing for something. You saw the transmission. The abandoned research station." "I saw it," Varn interrupted. "And that's exactly why I'm doing this." Kyrex frowned. Varn sighed, leaning closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You're right, Kyrex. The Senate fears Earth, but they fear something else even more. Kyrex's eyes widened. What? Varn hesitated. Then he pressed a few buttons on the console. A holographic star map appeared. It showed the outer rim and a blinking red signal. The distress call, Kyrex murmured. Varn nodded. The Chancellor wants this signal erased. He's sending a fleet to destroy the station, so that no one finds out what's there. Kyrex stared at the blinking light. His mind spun. We have to get there first, he said. Varn exhaled. Then, finally, he reached out and unlocked Kyrex's restraints. We leave now, Varn said. But if we find what I think we will, we may not come back. With that, the ship changed course. Toward the lost human station. Toward the truth. The small ship hurtled through hyperspace, leaving the Galactic Senate far behind. Kyrex sat in the cockpit beside Senator Varn, his mind racing. The distress signal from the abandoned human station pulsed on the display, a silent beacon calling them toward the unknown. Kyrex turned to Varn. What exactly do you think we'll find? Varn's face was unreadable. The last time anyone spoke of Earth's fleets, they were unmatched. Some say they left behind something dangerous. Others say they took something with them. Kyrex's stomach twisted. And you think the Senate knows? Varn let out a humorless chuckle. The Senate fears Earth more than any enemy we've ever faced. Do you know why they let the humans leave without a fight? Kyrex shook his head. Varn leaned forward. Because we didn't let them leave, Kyrex. They walked away on their own, and we were too afraid to stop them. The words sent a chill down Kyrex's spine. Before he could respond, the ship's alarms blared. Destination reached. They exited hyperspace, and the human station came into view. It was massive. An ancient construct floating in the cold void, its surface covered in dust and debris. Cracks lined the structure, yet it still held together, as if refusing to die. Varn checked the sensors. No life signs, but the distress beacon is still active. Kyrex swallowed hard. Something's waiting for us. They maneuvered the ship into a docking bay, the landing thrusters kicking up a cloud of dust. The station was eerily silent. The metal hallways were dimly lit by flickering emergency lights. As they stepped inside, the air was thick, not with dust, but with something else. A feeling, a presence. Kyrex gripped his blaster. I don't like this. Varn scanned the walls. This place was abandoned for centuries. But look at the power levels. There's still energy running through this station. Kyrex frowned. Then who turned on the distress beacon? A faint sound echoed through the corridor. A metallic click. Both men froze. Kyrex aimed his weapon into the darkness. We're not alone. Varn pointed toward a control panel. Let's check the logs. If there are any records left, we need to see them. They moved quickly, reaching the station's command center. Dust-covered consoles hummed softly, their screens still active after centuries of silence. Kyrex activated the last recorded log. The screen flickered, and a grainy image appeared. A human scientist, fear in his eyes. This is Dr. Ilias Carter. We were wrong. So wrong. Static crackled through the speakers. They told us not to look. They warned us never to activate the last archive. But we did. And now, a deep rumble shook the station. The video glitched. They're coming back. Dr. Carter's voice trembled. We thought they left us behind. We thought we were safe. But we were fools. Kyrex and Varn exchanged a look. The recording continued. They never left. They've been watching. Waiting. And now, the scientist's face twisted in terror. Humanity is coming home. The screen shut off. A heavy silence fell over the room. Then, somewhere deep in the station, a low, mechanical voice activated. Final protocol initiated. Stand by for arrival. Kyrex's blood ran cold. Something was waking up. A deep rumble shook the station. Dust rained from the ceiling. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. Kyrex spun around, gripping his blaster tight. "What the hell was that?" he demanded. Varn's eyes were locked on the screen. The final words of Dr. Carter's law echoed in his mind. "Humanity is coming home." Varn swallowed hard. "I think something just woke up." Another tremor. The walls groaned as old machinery roared back to life. Then the station spoke. "Final protocol engage. Automated systems online." The lights brightened. Monitors blinked to life, displaying lines of code in an ancient human dialect. Red warning symbols flashed across every screen. Kyrex stepped back. This station was never abandoned, was it? Varn's fingers flew across the console, deciphering the data. His breath hitched. "Oh no." Kyrex's stomach twisted. "What?" Varn turned to him, face pale. "This isn't just a station. It's a command center." A new alert flashed on the screen. "Reactivating fleet. Stand by." Kyrex felt his blood turn to ice. Reactivating what? The station trembled again. This time, it wasn't coming from inside. Something outside was moving. Kyrex and Varn sprinted to a nearby viewport. At first, they saw only the void, the distant stars, the shattered remains of long-dead ships drifting in the silence. Then, light. One by one, dark silhouettes emerged from the shadows. Gigantic shapes, hidden beneath the debris field. Their hulls gleamed as they powered up, ancient reactors roaring to life after millennia of slumber. A fleet. Not just any fleet. The lost Terran Defense Armada. Kyrex felt his breath catch. The ships were unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering dreadnoughts, sleek warships, titanic carriers bristling with weapons. Their designs were old, but far more advanced than anything the Galactic Senate had ever built, and they were waking up. One by one, their engines ignited. One by one, their weapons came online. Varn grabbed Kyrex's arm. His voice was barely above a whisper. The Senate always wondered why Earth never came back. Kyrex couldn't take his eyes off the fleet. "They never left," he murmured. Then, a final message blinked on the screen. A single, chilling sentence. "The Terran Armada is online, awaiting orders." Kyrex's pulse thundered in his ears. Something told him they wouldn't have to wait long. The station's metal walls shuddered as the massive warships came fully online. Energy signatures spiked across the sector. The silence of deep space was shattered by the awakening of humanity's lost fleet. Kyrex and Varn stood frozen, staring through the viewport as the enormous ships moved like sleeping giants, shaking off the dust of time. Engines ignited, weapons systems hummed to life, and defense protocols activated. Kyrex exhaled sharply. This fleet could wipe out the entire Galactic Senate in hours. Varn's fingers trembled over the console as he accessed more data. His eyes widened. This isn't just a fleet. It's a war machine, an entire planetary invasion force. But why would humanity leave all of this behind? Kyrex frowned. Maybe they never meant to leave it. A sudden alert blared through the station. Incoming transmission detected. Source unknown. The screens flickered. A new voice, cold and mechanical, filled the room. Unauthorized access detected. Identify. Varn hesitated before speaking. "I am Senator Varn of the Galactic Senate. We mean no harm." "We." The voice interrupted. "Identity not recognized. Scanning." A red laser flickered over them, scanning their bodies. The station's AI processed the results. Then, silence. The screen shifted, revealing something neither of them expected. A human. His face was obscured by a helmet, his uniform dark and imposing. He sat in a command chair, surrounded by flickering holoscreens. His eyes locked onto them, with an intensity that sent chills down Kyrex's spine. Then he spoke. "You are not authorized to be here." Kyrex swallowed. Who are you?" The figure leaned forward slightly. I am Admiral Victor Hale of the Terran Defense Armada, and you have trespassed on a classified military installation. Farn's breath caught. This station is active. Admiral Hale nodded slowly. It was never deactivated. Kyrex's mind reeled. But the Senate always thought Earth abandoned the war, that they left the galactic stage centuries ago. Hale's expression darkened. That's what we wanted them to believe. The words sent a chill down Kyrex's spine. Farn took a hesitant step forward. But why? Why hide a fleet this powerful? Why leave the Senate? Hale's eyes burned with something unreadable. You don't understand, he said quietly. The Senate was never humanity's ally. We left because we saw what was coming. Kyrex's hands tightened into fists. What was coming? Hale didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pressed a control on his console. A massive holographic display filled the room. Kyrex and Varn gasped. A vast armada, larger than anything in recorded history, was moving toward Senate-controlled space. Unknown ships. Dark, menacing, unlike any design in the galactic records. A hostile force. Hale's voice was grim. They are already on their way. He turned to them, eyes cold as steel. And the Senate is not ready. A heavy silence filled the room. Kyrex and Varn stared at the holographic display, their minds struggling to process what they were seeing. A massive armada, tens of thousands of warships, was approaching Senate-controlled space. Their black hulls gleamed like obsidian, their formations precise and deadly. Kyrex's throat was dry. Who are they? Admiral Hale's face remained expressionless. We call them the Harbingers. They are the reason we left the Galactic Senate, the reason humanity vanished. Varn shook his head. This doesn't make sense. The Senate never detected an invasion force. There was no war, no battle. If these Harbingers existed, why did humanity leave instead of warning us? Hale leaned forward. Because we saw the truth. The Senate wasn't ready. You were too focused on politics, too blind to see the storm coming. If we had stayed, we would have been dragged into your weakness, and we would have died alongside you. The words cut deep. Varn felt the weight of them settle over him like a crushing force. Kyrex narrowed his eyes. So you just left, hid your fleets and abandoned the galaxy. Hale's gaze hardened. No. He pointed at the hologram. We spent centuries preparing, watching, studying their tactics. We built the greatest war machine in history, ready to strike the moment they arrived. Farn's heart pounded. Then why reveal yourselves now? Hale exhaled slowly. Because time is up. The Harbingers are here. And this war, it won't be like anything the galaxy has ever seen. A deep boom echoed through the station. The viewport flickered as the Terran Armada shifted into full combat readiness. Engines roared. Weapon systems primed. Shields powered up. The ancient fleet was no longer sleeping. It was hungry. A message flashed across the command console. Harbinger forces detected. Engagement imminent. Hale turned to them, his voice like steel. The Senate won't survive this without us. And I need to know. His piercing gaze locked onto Farn. Are you here to help? Or will you get in our way? Farn's mind raced. The Senate would never believe him. They had dismissed Earth as nothing more than a forgotten power. But now, humanity stood between them and extinction. Kyrex clenched his fists. What do you need us to do? Hale gave a grim smile. Tell the Senate the truth. Another boom. The void outside rippled as dark shapes emerged from hyperspace. Sleek, jagged ships with glowing red cores. The Harbingers had arrived. Hale turned back to his console. We've waited long enough. Time to remind the galaxy why humanity was feared. With a single command, the Terran Armada surged forward. The war had begun.